Hi, I'm Patrick Giguère with Cosmic Alchemist Astrology, and welcome to this video. So this video is all about the Lunar Eclipse in Taurus on November the 19th, 2021. And it's a big deal of an eclipse, and it's a big deal of an eclipse season. And I say eclipse season because in 2 weeks after this lunar eclipse, we're going to have a solar eclipse in Scorpio, in the opposite sign. And they always take place in opposite signs from one another because lunar eclipses happen on a full moon when sun and moon are in opposite zodiac signs, and then solar eclipses take place on the new moon day when sun and moon are conjunct in the same sign, but also conjunct with one of the nodes of the moon, which we call Rahu and Ketu in Vedic astrology. So there's a lot to say. There's a lot of layers of meaning in here. I'm going to keep it concise in the beginning. I'll give you a summary if you're not blessed with great attention span or you just don't have a lot of time. I'll give you the nuts and bolts, and then for everybody who wants to stick around, we'll get deep into this and really examine it. So, yeah, this lunar eclipse is taking place at 3 degrees of Taurus, and it is conjunct within a degree by a fixed star called Algol. Algol is the decapitated head of Medusa. This is the most treacherous star in the Zodiac. People in the ancient times used to wait for planets to conjunct this star before they would launch wars and military campaigns. I think it's particularly good for like sneak attacks, because it has a deceptiveness, you know, like a star like Antares is, that's just straight out like overt warfare, but this has some kind of stealth and sneakiness in it, and you know, treachery. So, and it's interesting too, you know, I did some research into, you know, very ancient astrology, and when eclipses happen at this time of the year in November, they happen in Taurus. Lunar eclipses, excuse me. And then the solars happen in Scorpio, Libra and Scorpio, of course. But in ancient astrology, anytime you get an eclipse around this time of year, you know, there are some connotations to it that sound scary. You know, they say evil is established on the land. So a lot of people hear something like that and they go like, oh my God, the Antichrist is coming and the government is evil, evil just infiltrated. Well, evil has been established on the land really for probably the last 6,000 years. This is when the organized religion came into being, and the priests figured out that they could manipulate people with fear of the supernatural. And then they set up the governments in order to administer the people so that the priests didn't have to keep doing it. So evil has been established on the land for a long time. But what I think about this eclipse season, so on the 19th with the lunar, December 4th with the solar, it's going to be more and more apparent and undeniable by the mainstream that evil is established upon the land. Pretty much all lands, and is ruling it. So this is going to be exciting. I think this is very encouraging. Now, this is going to be an intense few months, because eclipses are basically 4-month events. So you start feeling them a month prior, and then their effects take another 3 months to really sort of roll out and become apparent. So that's why it's an eclipse season. So this is going to be very intense for people. People are going to lose their heads. They're going to like feel like they're losing their minds. Because this lunar eclipse is conjunct with the head of Medusa, there's going to be a lot of unconscious anger coming out, anger and fear, contentiousness, and people are going to feel like they're losing their minds, and they're going to feel mentally and emotionally paralyzed, because I think a lot of information that has been written off as conspiracy theory is going to continue to keep coming out into the public light, and it's building, and things are coming to a head though at the end of this year. In a few days they're starting to come to a head. It's going to be tougher to just deny things as conspiracy theory. So this is very exciting for me and very encouraging. But a lot of people are going to go crazy. And I think a lot of people in power are going to become paralyzed. They're going to get stopped in their tracks for at least a few months. And people are even going to fall from grace here. For example, this lunar eclipse happens the day before Joe Biden's birthday. An eclipse on your birthday can really mean just a tough year ahead. And then the solar eclipse happens, it's conjunct his natal sun, the sun in his birth chart. So I'm predicting he's going to succumb to health problems very soon. And I don't wish this upon anybody, but his health problems could be fatal by March. Doesn't look good. He shows signs of dementia. A lot of people scream and cry when they hear this, but when you look at it from a medical perspective, especially the fist clenching, it's there. And he had 2 brain aneurysm surgeries since the 1980s. The first one was in the 80s, and then there was one, I think, in the last maybe 10, 15 years. So, yeah, he's been struggling with health for a while, but it hasn't been very public. And then this eclipse happens in Kamala Harris's 12th house of losses. And then for Nancy Pelosi, this eclipse is conjunct her natal Mars in her 11th house. So 11th house is your wishes, your desires, the things you want to accomplish, and your social circles. So, and because it's going to be conjunct Rahu, and her natal Mars is conjunct Algol in Taurus at 3 degrees, she's going to suffer some kind of a setback that's going to be, it's going to make her very angry. This rage is going to come out of her. She's going to lose her head. And even her anger could cause her some kind of disgrace, she might lose face in some way because her anger gets out of control. And the thing too with Mars and Rahu conjunct is it's aggressiveness, but then there's like some sneakiness and some deceptiveness to it too. So she could get her hands caught in some kind of a cookie jar that it's been in for many years. And just, having that, the full moon and lunar eclipse conjunct her Mars, her mind is going to be full of anger and aggression. Could even be vengefulness and kind of vindictiveness, because Mars and Rahu conjunct, it's vindictiveness. It's like aggressiveness and sneakiness, but in a deceptive, very deceptive way. Violence, vindictiveness, volatility, anger, but carried out in a very sneaky, deceptive way. So we'll see what happens. And I'm not just picking on Democrats, they all suck. The world is ruled by sociopaths, and that leads me into my next point is these eclipses are going to make us face the fact that we are ruled by sociopaths, and nobody's favorite party and favorite politicians or favorite religions and religious leaders are really looking out for their best interests. They are puppets for big businesses and big banks. So this is going to be more and more apparent that we're ruled by sociopaths. But I think these sociopaths are going to start losing in a very visible way. This is going to be, in my opinion, it's going to be like when people who have you see this in stories and movies and books where somebody has a magic lamp with a genie in it, and they keep making wishes, but these wishes are not true, genuine, heart's desires. When these wishes become just greedy and filled with desires to dominate other people, then the wishes basically backfire on the person and the person gets screwed. So I think, the global mega elite, the corporate communists, the Illuminati types, they're going to start getting screwed by their own desires for power, because when you have that, genie in the bottle, the genie in the magic lamp, if you don't make genuine wishes from your heart that don't have a desire to dominate and control other people, then those wishes have loopholes in them, which basically come back to bite you on the ass. So the global elite, corporate communist Illuminati elite, is going to start getting bitten on the ass, which is very encouraging. And they're going to start losing their heads. And I think in this eclipse season, we could have, there's some potential for like a false flag attack. I've been saying there's potential for something in the New York subway system, because in October, the Department of Homeland Security was pumping gas into the ventilation system in the New York subway that had genetic material in it. They're called oligos, and they're single strands of DNA and RNA. So anytime, and they said they were running a bioterrorism sort of a drill, how to a response drill, and they pumped this non-toxic gas with this genetic material into the ventilation system in the New York subway. So I'm wondering if people's bodies are being saturated with something, so that if something else is released, they can say, well, this is a new variant, a new COVID variant emerging, or this was a Russian bio attack, or they try to pin it on some right-wing group. It's very possible, especially around the solar eclipse. So yes, they will be losing their heads. Speaking of people losing their heads, when you look at the symbols of this, it's there's a lot of decapitation. So you've got, for this lunar eclipse, moon will be conjunct Rahu, which is a decapitated head. The moon is conjunct the fixed star of Algol, which is the decapitated head of Medusa. And within Taurus, the smaller constellation, the nakshatra that this takes place in, is Kritika. So Kritika is called the cutter. The symbols are knives, razors, all kinds of blades. And it deals with just cutting through the bullshit and getting to the point. So that's one reason I say there's going to be new information in the media, shocking information that reveals some secret, mysterious things in the realm of scandals, conspiracies, deep dark secrets. Things that have always been going on, but we've been in denial of. So this is really exciting. I'm looking forward to all this. And like I said, some of these things sound scary, but it's going to be all right. Another thing in the ancient astrology, they talk about how eclipses in November around this time bring about like food shortages. They talk about shortage of trees and nuts and seeds and fruits. We're already seeing this. We're already seeing food shortages. Some supplements, you can't get, they're back ordered. This isn't a global famine thing, which people are jumping to. A lot of people, to get attention on YouTube and online and on social media, are saying, oh, global famine coming, it's a fucking disaster. No. Because you have to have Pluto in Scorpio. Planets like Saturn and Pluto, especially the two together. Pluto in Scorpio, that was like during the War on Terror, when all those ridiculous illegal wars in Afghanistan and Iraq were going on. That was Pluto in Scorpio. That was like a time of like mega death. This is not a mega death time. This is a time when people in government, people in authority, even people in the business world want to scare the shit out of you to get more power and more money. They want to convince you there's mega death out there, but there's really not. And we've been seeing this for 2 years with the Black Death, the Black Plague. And that leads me into another point, is we are going to be dealing with poisons, cures, medicines, hospitalizations, matters around all that. So if you you put this over the birth chart of America. America is a Sagittarius ascendant. So Taurus, where this lunar eclipse is happening, falls in the 6th house. So the 6th house is health, disease, healing, cures, illness, remedies, poisons, medicines. So we've been dealing with illnesses and cures, but there's dispute as to whether the cure is really a cure or a poison, because it was rushed through. It is experimental, and people are participating in open drug trials. And this is not made clear to them. It's in the fine print. So, and it's interesting because, again, Algol, the fixed star that the full moon and lunar eclipse is conjunct with, it's the decapitated head of Medusa. And in the myth of Medusa, after Perseus cut her head off and used it to, in the movies he defeated the Kraken, in the myth he defeated a king named Polydectes, who basically had sort of abducted his mother. After he defeats his enemy and paralyzes his enemy and turns the enemy to stone, Perseus gives the head of Medusa to Athena, who was basically like his patron goddess who helped him on his quest. And she fixed it to her shield, and the shield would, the gaze of the eyes would paralyze, enemies. So, but Athena took some of the poison, because Medusa's blood, she had venom still, because she's part snake, but then her blood was also poisonous. She took this blood and this venom and gave it to Asclepius, who was the physician of the gods. So he's the son of Apollo, and he was a healer and a physician, like the master healer in the pantheon. So she gives the blood and the poison to Asclepius, and he makes a universal panacea, so a cure-all. He makes medicines out of it, and then he makes a deadly poison. So we are going to be dealing with matters of health, healing, disease, poison, and cures. So these eclipses are going to trigger more information coming out into the public about the true nature of this injectable experimental medicine. It's going to become more and more apparent that it is not a cure, that it is quite poisonous. And people are going to lose their heads, because again, not only the global corporate communist Illuminati elite losing their heads, but people in the population are going to lose their heads when this new information comes out. More and more people are going to be shocked, and they're going to be emotionally paralyzed. And again, with the head of Medusa, the lifeless eyes of Medusa paralyze people. When they talk about Medusa's head turning people to stone, it's when your emotions overwhelm your mind, and your mind is paralyzed. When your mind is paralyzed, your body is paralyzed. So it's not only people in power who are going to be shocked and paralyzed, but it's going to be their fervent supporters in the population who just think they're wonderful. It's, oh, that Bill Gates is such a nice man. He has all that money, but he helps people. It's like, yeah, and he also owns huge shares in pharmaceutical companies and other companies that make all kinds of technology that his companies want to sell to the government in response to this whole viral outbreak. So it's going to become more apparent to people that the world is ruled by sociopaths. And, the head of Medusa, as it turns people to stone, it's like a sociopath. It destroys people without any feeling or emotion. No vengefulness, no anger, no hate. It just destroys people without emotion, like a sociopath. So we're going to get a look into the eyes of the sociopaths. And the sociopaths are going to get a look into themselves. So they're not going to go to therapy and consult spiritual teachers and, make inward journeys and discover they're horrible people. I think they're going to see themselves and their deeds on TV. Things like gain of function research about how this virus is a bioweapon from a lab in Wuhan, which there's evidence for, and they've been talking about in Congress, but the drug companies provide 60% of funding to mainstream media, so they won't talk about it. So to most people, it's just a conspiracy theory. So there's going to be more and more of this, and basically people who have been making excuses for these politicians and who are addicted to kissing their asses and addicted to kissing the asses of people like Bill Gates and George Soros. When this information comes out, they're going to be paralyzed because they're going to be like, I went to college and I served in the military and I own a home and a business and how could I not know this? Well, you weren't paying attention. So, yeah, a lot of people are going to lose their heads and be paralyzed and they're going to freak out. So, but I have to be honest, I'm looking forward to it. I'm pretty excited. So that's it for the summary. And well, actually, last thing in summary too, on the 20th, the day after the lunar eclipse, actually on Dementia Joe Biden's birthday, Jupiter is going to come home. It's not going to come home. Jupiter is going to transit into Aquarius. Jupiter since June has been in Capricorn with Saturn, so it's been debilitated. That's Jupiter's weakest sign, and with Saturn home there, it makes Jupiter even weaker because Jupiter is expansiveness and freedom and optimism, and Saturn is limitation and restriction. So very opposite natures, complementary but opposite. So this has made Jupiter weak. This is giving us the feeling like, you know, life is kind of stalling and things aren't going forward, and our freedom is looking like it's in increasing danger. But when Jupiter comes to Aquarius on the 20th, Aquarius is the sign of humanity, we the people, equality, freedom, fairness, all that stuff. Jupiter is going to leave Saturn's primary house. It's going to go into Aquarius, and freedom is going to be on the rise. People are going to start fighting back against all of this medical tyranny, scientific tyranny, and control freak government, which Saturn and Pluto and Capricorn is causing. So there's going to be more and more freedom. And then Aquarius for America specifically is the third house of media and communication. So Jupiter is the benevolent giver of gifts and blessings. And Jupiter is all about spiritual and intellectual truth. So, because its home sign Sagittarius is all about the truth. So Jupiter is going to bring more truth to media. And Neptune will also be in Aquarius. It'll be retrograde. Neptune in retrograde brings about more disclosures and revelations and things like that. Brings, breaks through the illusions so that the truth can be seen. So some big stuff's going to hit the media through these next 3 months of this eclipse season. So this is, 3.5 months. So this is very encouraging. I'm very excited about this. But a lot of people are going to go crazy. Could be some more rioting. If not, just more contention between people. People are going to have to face the deep, dark, unconscious truths about the world and about their own emotions, and who they are. And one more detail, little general detail about this eclipse in summary, is the sixth house also deals with enemies. So Taurus is the sixth house of America. So we are going to be starting to have to face the facts of who America's true enemies are, and really enemies of humanity. And so, again, Medusa, it destroys people like a sociopath without emotion. So our enemies, the enemies of America and humanity, are sociopaths. Now Taurus is signifies business leaders, leaders of business and banking and commerce. And they are the ones who own the politicians and who own the governments and who puppeteer all of the above. And they puppeteer the NGOs, and they use NGOs as tax shelters because they donate to them. So we're going to be face to face with these business leaders who really own and puppeteer the world and who are complete sociopaths. So like I was saying before, this eclipse is a wake-up call for America. It's a wake-up call for America to understand who its true enemies are, and it's people in business behind the politicians, behind the NGOs, who just have this gaze like Medusa that just destroy people without emotion. It's sociopathic behavior. So we're going to see who America and who humanity's real sociopath enemies are when we get this glimpse into the eyes of Medusa on the lunar eclipse. All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty here. This is the fun part for me. We're going to dive into this mythology here. But yeah, like I said, lunar eclipse, the maximum is 4:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so the east coast of America, the Atlantic coast. It's visible in North America and the North Pacific. So this is the wake-up call to America. This, because it's in Taurus, the sixth house of America, it's saying you need to wake up to who your enemies are. This Taurus is the sixth house of enemies. And they have been using health, healing, disease, poisons, and cures against us. So it's a wake-up call. You know, take back your freedom or lose it forever. But with Jupiter coming to Aquarius on the next day, as I mentioned, freedom is really going to get a boost, to get a shot in the ass. So, yeah, I think America had a near-death experience in the last couple of years, but we're going to get through it, and the world's going to get through it, because I think, you know, if America fell, the world would go with it. We're like the last armed population, and you know, the government needs to have a healthy sense of fear, just like anybody. They need to know that they're not all powerful, and they can't just do whatever the fuck they want anytime they want to do it. So yeah, all right. So this lunar eclipse again takes place at 3 degrees of Taurus. It's in the nakshatra, the lunar mansion of Kritika. So Kritika goes from 26 degrees of Aries to 10 degrees of Taurus. But it has a lot of Aries, the Martian energies of Aries to it. It has the aggressiveness and stubbornness, which are traits of warriors. That's what drives warriors to persevere and prevail. Kritika is called the cutter. It's because it's symbolized by knives, razors, blades of all kinds. And this is because it cuts to the point. It doesn't sugarcoat things. It doesn't beat around the bush. It just cuts through. It wants to get to the point, get to the truth. It is ruled by a deity called Agni, who's the god of spiritual fire, so the god of Kundalini fire. And Kundalini is the force of emotional and spiritual maturity. So, and the spiritual fire burns away impurities and, you know, things that just don't serve us. Traits and emotions and just patterns of thought, belief, emotion, behavior that keep us down. So, yeah, this is a big wake-up call, and it's like a call to grow up for all of us. So we have to burn away illusions and delusions. Especially the illusion, you know, the self-delusion where we think that people of all the power in the world get on TV and tell us the full truth all the time because we're so important, because we vote, because we own homes and we have careers and we were in the military. We gotta wake the fuck up. Now, in Kritika, in this smaller constellation in Aries and Taurus, you get the Pleiades, which Vedic astrology calls the 7 weeping sisters. Everybody in the world calls them the 7 sisters. But, you know, in Vedic they have this myth where they're the 7 weeping sisters because they're falsely accused of infidelity, marital infidelity by their husbands. So this can signify, you know, people falling from grace, powerful women falling from grace. Especially Algol, because Algol is also in Kritika, in this part of Taurus. Algol can, you know, especially for women, it can give them power, but then it can cause their disgrace and downfall. And it can do this to any leader. But yeah, so these 7 weeping sisters, they actually raised a god called Kritikaya, and who's named after this constellation. And he grew up to be a powerful warrior who was very protective. He was not a warrior who fought for conquest and material gain. but was a protector. In people's individual birth charts, this will often point to somebody who will marry somebody who already has children, and they will raise those children, and they'll basically adopt them as their own, even though they are not their biological children. So this deals with taking care of children, taking care of people, protecting people. This could deal with some news about human trafficking that has hit the news. And it's interesting, before the Trump presidency, human trafficking was a big deal. The United Nations has been talking about it and investigating it forever. And people on the left were really concerned about human trafficking with the problem that it is. But since Donald Trump started talking about it, it was written off as a conspiracy theory. So this could be coming back in a big way. And it could be coming back that, children who are being trafficked to be sold are, rescued or something. Who knows? A lot of possibilities with this stuff. So yeah. Now let's get into Medusa here. Because this lunar eclipse, again, 3 degrees of Taurus, conjunct within a degree the fixed star Algol. So Algol is the decapitated head of Medusa. So let's talk about who Medusa is, because this is very informative and it's important. Now, in the modern world, people usually write off mythology as kind of hokey, kind of campy, silly, antiquated, archaic, outdated, very irrelevant. But mythology is actually the mother of psychology. This is where the early psychologists got everything from, because mythology contains archetypes, and archetypes are prototypes and patterns of thought that are universal, and they describe all of the situations we go through in life and all of the roles we play. It's very true that, there really is nothing new under the sun. I mean, new things happen all the time, but there are always common threads that have always run through every human life and will always run through every human life, no matter how technologically advanced we get. No matter how far into the future we go, we'll always be human. So events in our life are always very much like mythological stories that are out there, especially the whole concept of the hero's journey, which all of us go through in some way, shape, or form. Some people are more dramatic than others, but we all go through it. So, yeah. So Medusa is a very important myth, because just like astrology, and mythology is based on astrology, based on the stars. The structure of the Zodiac is based on mythology. It's kind of a chicken and the egg sort of a thing. So, the stars and the planets, they are in the external world, but then we have these same forces in our internal world, and that's why astrology works, is because you have this microcosm and this macrocosm that work together and mirror each other. So Medusa and the myths mirror our own inner forces and the events of our lives in our own process of growth. So we all have an internal Medusa. And this is because Medusa's name, and I don't speak ancient Greek, but I've looked all this up. So, don't poop your pants too bad if you are an ancient Greek expert. I make some mistakes. So Medusa's name basically translates to guardian and protectress. And Medusa is an emotional being of the unconscious mind. Now, why do I say this? Well, Medusa is the daughter of, let me see here, Phorcys and Ceto. So Phorcys and Ceto, they're basically sea monsters, or they're titans. They're like primordial sea gods. The Titans were the gods, the primordial gods who came before the Olympians. So the Olympians are like Zeus, Poseidon, Apollo, Athena, Aphrodite, Hera, the gods of the heavens. So she's the daughter of these sea gods, or these sea monsters. Now, water in mythology and even in our subconscious and unconscious minds always deals with emotion. So this is why some people are afraid of water. They don't like being in the water because it brings back very uncomfortable emotions and memories, which we all have. So Medusa is the child of these sea monsters and these sea gods who are emotional forces of the unconscious mind. And when you see like the universal flood stories all around the world, like the biblical flood story, that is a story about an emotional breakdown, because when the flood waters rise and cover the earth and people start drowning, except for the people who get into an ark or a boat, this is about being overwhelmed by drowning in our emotions. So anything in mythology and astrology, or even your dreams that deals with water and drowning, it's about being overwhelmed with emotions. So Medusa's parents are emotional forces of the unconscious. And Medusa is a protectress. She has sisters, and together they're called the Gorgons, but Medusa is the one who is mortal, and this is going to be important later. But she is the guardian or the protectress. So what she does is she protects all of us from the emotions within our unconscious, from our unconscious emotions. So your unconscious mind, it's a record of every little experience, every emotion, every memory from this current incarnation, from all your past lives, and then from all of the lives of everybody who's ever lived. It's also like a shared memory. So this is just, it's too much information, too many emotions, too much information, too many memories for our conscious selves to handle. We just wouldn't be able to function if we had access to all of it all at once. It would paralyze us, it would drown us. We'd kind of be in like a state of hypnosis and paralysis. And again, hypnosis and paralysis is what the head of Medusa does when people hold it up. And, its eyes gaze upon the onlookers. So, yeah, Medusa is this guardian that guards our conscious selves from the unconscious. And, your conscious thoughts, emotions, and feelings are only about 5 to 10% of all of your mental activity. 90% of it is unconscious. So we have to be protected from it in order to function in everyday life and function in the world. So Medusa is this guardian of the unconscious, and her parents are emotional forces of the unconscious mind. And then Medusa's sisters are dread, horror, and alarm. So dread, horror, and alarm paralyze people and even hypnotize people. And this is something that's been going on in the world forever. People in power love to scare the shit out of we the people, us mere peasants, because what they do is they basically sell us a virtual reality that's based on this fear. And they say, oh, this horrible thing can happen to you, so do exactly as we say and you'll be safe. So we have been getting manipulated with dread, horror, and alarm for years, for hundreds of years, thousands of years, especially, like I said, for the last 6,000 years since the formation of organized religion, which manipulates people with fear, especially fear of the afterlife and the supernatural. So, yeah, these are Medusa's sisters that paralyze and hypnotize people. And Medusa does this too. Now, Medusa, and we'll get more into that, Medusa in the myth sleeps in a cave in the underworld. So the underworld in mythology is always the unconscious mind. And because she's sleeping in a cave, it's like kind of our unconscious emotions and thoughts and memories that are repressed, or that we just don't even know about. We're totally ignorant of them to no fault of our own. So, yeah. So then in this mythology, in comes Perseus. Perseus was traveling with his mother. Perseus is the son of Zeus, or Jupiter, as he's called. Zeus is the Greek name, Jupiter is a Roman name. So he's the son of Zeus and a mortal woman named Danae. So Danae, it's a pretty cool name. It kind of sounds like Danann or Danu. You know, in Ireland you had the Tuatha, the Danann or Tuatha Danu. They were a tribe that ruled Ireland before the Gaelic people invaded about 2,500 years ago. Could be a connection, who knows? But being the son of Zeus, Perseus is the son of a thunder god. Thunder gods are gods of the mind. Thor is a god of the mind because Thor is a thunder god. Marvel Comics made Thor out to be a brawny meathead, but he's actually a god of the higher mind, of divine consciousness. And he's a god of life force energy. And the whole idea is when you gather and accumulate life force energy, your mind operates on a higher level and it starts to operate from divine consciousness, from the divine mind. So yeah, so these are Perseus's parents. So Perseus is a child of this guardian of the divine mind, being the son of the thunder god. So yeah, so Perseus and his mother are traveling, and his mother gets abducted by the king of a city called Seriphus, and his name is Polydectes. So this king sees Perseus's mother and he's like smitten with her beauty. But since he's a sociopath and a narcissist, he just has to have her. So he takes her as a guest into his palace, but she's under house arrest. She's not free to leave, and he wants to marry her. So Perseus asks the king if he'll release his mother and give her freedom. And the king says, well, I'll do it under one condition. You have to bring me the head of Medusa. So this is basically, the king sees this as a fool's errand for Perseus. And basically a suicide mission. So Perseus is being sent on a suicide mission, and I'm sure, the king would send him on his quest and then laugh and be like, I'll never see that chump again. Nobody can take Medusa's head. But what he's doing is he's sending Perseus on a quest into his own unconscious, into his own underworld, where he's going to gain more insight about himself so he can come back empowered. But a narcissist and a sociopath, like this king, or like the people who rule our world currently, these are the last people who will do inner work and really get to know themselves and examine their feelings, their thoughts, their emotions, and their actions. They just do what they do, just like the head of Medusa. They just shine their gaze out and they destroy whatever it is they touch, without emotion, and even awareness that they're doing it. They just want to take what they want, and they just take it, and they're not aware of the fact that they're destroying people. So yeah, a sociopath, a narcissist like Polydectes, or like the people who control our world, who control the religions, the governments, and then the corporations who own those, they really don't see any use for self-examination and self-improvement. They'll improve themselves enough to make more money and get more power, but they're not looking at how their behavior affects other people. And if they can see that they're destroying people, they just don't care. So yeah. So Perseus gets sent on this fool's errand, this suicide mission, to go into the underworld and decapitate Medusa and bring her head back in order to free his mother. So Polydectes has basically written Perseus off. It's like, Medusa's gonna kill him. She's just gonna look at him and turn him to stone. So Perseus sets off on his quest, and yeah, he's going into the underworld, but that means that he's going into his deep unconscious emotions to learn more about himself and come back empowered. So because Perseus is bound and determined to go on this quest into the underworld, into his deep inner unconscious world, the gods help him. And the gods are universal forces. They are out in the universe, but they are also inside of us. And when they see him being courageous and willing to go into his unconscious emotions and face all those monsters in there, they decide to help him. And this is how the gods work, how our inner gods work. When we decide to take action and do something that frightens us, we get help that seems to come from out of the blue, but it's really our own internal forces helping us. So the gods decide to help Perseus. Athena, who is often a patron of heroes, she gives Perseus a mirrored shield, a reflective shield. You know, and the myth literally says a bronze shield, which means this is from the Bronze Age. This is at least 4,000 years old. It's a very old myth. So this bronze shield is reflective. It's a mirror, just like the moon is a mirror. And the moon is a macrocosm of our individual minds and even our collective mind. And the mind is a mirror of the soul, the sun. So basically she gives him the ability to really look into his soul, to reflect his soul and look at it. Look at his deep unconscious, the deepest part of himself. Now, he needs this mirrored shield because, again, Medusa is this guardian of the unconscious, and when her eyes open, the full power of the unconscious shines out of them. And like I said, it's too many memories, too much emotion, too much information for the conscious self to handle. So that's why we can get paralyzed by it. We get turned to stone by it. So this mirror will allow him to reflect the power of his unconscious so he can see it and be aware of it, but not take the brunt of it, not take the full force of it. So, and this deals with like a lot of therapy techniques, especially for people who they have severe PTSD, they've been to war, they've been sexually assaulted, or even people who are former MKUltra subjects who have repressed memories that are disturbing, but they're not consciously aware of them. The best techniques are ones that are indirect, and they don't bring the person back to the emotions of that memory. It basically allows them to view the memories and the emotions with detachment. So that has to do with what this mirrored shield is all about. It's all about looking at the unconscious and the underworld and this guardian of the unconscious, Medusa, but not directly, so you don't get the full force of your unconscious emotions. So he has that from Athena. And Athena is a goddess of wisdom, among other things, also a warrior. He gets gold winged sandals from Hermes, aka Mercury. And Mercury is the god of intellect, thinking, communication, and travel. So these winged sandals will basically give Perseus the ability to travel into his inner world, into the unconscious, swiftly, and give him the ability to think critically, intellectually, and logically, and to communicate with the forces of the unconscious mind, of the underworld that live in his underworld. And then and another way to look at this too is like, because Medusa symbolizes like the destructive power of like sociopaths and narcissists, it's like the ability to navigate people like that and not be taken in by them. Because sociopaths and narcissists, they know how to find people who have been victimized and people who have deep wounds, and they know how to take advantage of those wounds and basically use them as like a back door into the person's mind, into the person's emotions. So yeah, it's the ability to navigate people like that. And then Hephaestus, aka Vulcan, the god of volcanoes and smithing, gives Perseus a magical sword. So swords are symbolic of purity, of single-pointed focusedness, single-pointed focus, single-pointed intent, and really cutting through things to, get to the point. So, yeah, this symbolizes Perseus, like his single-pointed focusness. Single-pointed focus, I'm tongue-tied, single-pointed focus to accomplish his mission. And then from Pluto, aka Hades, the god of the underworld, he gets a helmet of invisibility. So, usually gods of the underworld are depicted as devils, but they're really not. What they really are is they're compassionate deities who help souls in the underworld, souls who are between incarnations. It helps them to understand the lessons of the previous life. It helps them to heal so they can go on to the next incarnation. The goddess Hel from the Norse pantheon is just like this. She's the queen of the underworld, but she's compassionate and she helps souls between incarnations to heal. The Christian church just took the word hell, which is the name of the goddess and the name of the underworld, and they turned it into a place of torment. So it was hijacked and basically misused to manipulate people with fear, because organized religion, government, they all use fear to manipulate people. But hell is actually a very compassionate goddess. So these deities of the underworld, these rulers of the underworld, are very helpful and compassionate when you have the courage to face your deep emotions and your deep, your unpleasant thoughts and memories and all that stuff. And just even your own inner nature. Because especially, like Perseus, when you're going into your inner world and you need to see yourself, a truer, deeper version of yourself, you need to do that without judging yourself. Because what happens is when we grow up, we are basically conditioned by other people, by our parents, teachers, family, even our friends, to become who they think we should be. And we lose touch with our inner nature. So when we start discovering our inner nature and what we really want out of life and how we really feel about ourselves or other people, we can feel guilty about it. We can feel like we're selfish or we're horrible people. You just need to face all that stuff and just own it. Otherwise, you will always be divided within yourself and you'll feel guilty and you'll feel resentful towards yourself. So whoever you truly are, whatever you truly want, however you truly feel, you just need to embrace it and own it, because it's all power. It's all power that you can use. So this helmet of invisibility that Perseus gets from the god of the underworld, what it is it's the ability to be emotionally neutral, to have a cool head, and to think critically. And to just face who you really are deep down with non-judgment. And this helmet of invisibility too, what it does is it gives you the ability to explore your deep unconscious self kind of without being attacked by the forces that are in there. And really, this is a thing that I cover with people in astrology readings, that your unconscious mind, it's programmed to protect you. Just like Medusa, it's a guardian that protects you from your deep unconscious emotions. Now, really, the true you, the soul that lives in the heart, is the true authority in your life. And the soul is supposed to be ruling the unconscious, and it's supposed to be taking advice from the higher self. But when the unconscious doesn't feel like you, the human soul, are being the leader, when it's not confident in your leadership, it acts like a pack of dogs. So if you're trying to live in a house with like 5 or 6 dogs, the dogs want you to be the leader. If you're not demonstrating leadership, there's going to be a power struggle among the dogs, and then the strongest one is going to take over the house, and it's going to treat you like you're another dog, and it's going to run your life. So the unconscious mind does this. It wants to protect us, but if we don't demonstrate leadership, then it takes our lives over. So a lot of what I cover in astrology readings is all about getting the unconscious mind to cooperate and to follow your individual leadership rather than taking your life over. And what the unconscious does is it's always scanning your environment, and it's aware of everything in your life, so it's always comparing people and situations in your life to things that it already knows. But what it can do is it can make false assumptions, and it doesn't like to do new things. It likes things that are familiar. So when you are in unfamiliar situations, the unconscious will often push those new experiences away because out of fear of the unknown. If it's something it doesn't know, it just tries to isolate you from it. So people often run into invisible barriers and glass ceilings in their lives, and a lot of time when people get excited about doing new things like new jobs, new relationships, new experiences, and they know these things are going to be good for them and going to make them grow and improve their lives, they'll embark on these new pursuits, but then things will just go sideways and basically life turns into a ball of chaos. This is often the unconscious mind trying to protect you. Now, it happens too that sometimes the things that you think you want are not your genuine desires, so those things will blow up in your face too. But sometimes you are sincerely pursuing your desires, and things will get chaotic because your unconscious mind is frightened because it's not convinced that you are acting like the leader. So that's a big thing in the astrology readings I do. We get into like the themes of your genuine desires, and I give everybody a custom meditation that involves a mantra and a yantra, which is a mandala. So you chant the mantra, you look at the mandala, and it's like a system update, like a reprogramming language for the operating system of your unconscious mind. And your unconscious is your built-in manifester that builds your life and builds everything in your life. Literally manifests everything for you. This is Brahma from the Vedic and Hindu Trinity, Brahma the creator. Brahma is a symbol for the unconscious. The unconscious literally creates your whole life and your whole world, because it's all of your reactions and automatic responses to things too. So yeah, this helmet of invisibility, it allows Perseus to go into his inner world, into his unconscious, without being attacked by the forces in there. Because sometimes when you really start getting deep in your unconscious mind and you're getting down to your true emotions or even to repressed memories, you'll often feel fear, and it'll feel like something is attacking you. So this is your unconscious trying to protect you from the emotions and the memories in there. So the helm of invisibility allows Perseus to go deeper into himself and examine his deep emotions kind of unnoticed. So on top of objective critical thinking, and all that kind of stuff. So Perseus, he uses this reflective, he sneaks in with the helmet of invisibility. He travels in swiftly and quietly with the magical sandals. And then he uses this reflective mirror, which is, a clear mind, because, again, the moon and the mind are just, they're analogs, they're correspondences to one another, but the moon is a macro representation of your mind. So this nice, shiny, reflective shield Athena has given Perseus the gift of a clear mind so it can reflect his deepest self, his soul, with clarity. So he uses this reflective shield to find Medusa. He decapitates her with the magical sword he was given. And then when Medusa dies, two beings basically like fly out of her body, basically emerge from her. And it turns out Medusa was pregnant. So Medusa was actually pregnant by Poseidon, and there's two versions to that story. One version goes that Medusa seduced Poseidon, the god of the ocean, and again the ocean is emotions, unconscious emotions, she seduced Poseidon and had sex with her in Athena's temple. And since Athena is like a virgin warrior goddess, she perceived this as an act of impurity and uncleanliness. So then the myth goes that she punished Medusa, who was a beautiful woman once, and made her like half snake, so like the upper body of a woman, lower body of a snake, and then snakes for hair. Another version is that Poseidon wanted to rape Medusa, and she fled to the temple of Athena. And she asked Athena for protection, but Athena didn't answer her pleas, and she was raped by Poseidon in the temple. And then since Athena was jealous of Medusa and wanted Poseidon for herself, wanted Poseidon to lust after her, she adds insult to injury by punishing Medusa for, being victimized. So there's two versions of the myth, and they're pretty deep. But especially when you take the part, if you take the version where Medusa seduces Poseidon in Athena's temple, it's like an act of impulsiveness and irresponsibility. It's kind of about just deep, kind of unbridled, out of control, unconscious desires that can kind of turn somebody into a monster, or can at least sort of, make their life kind of chaotic and out of control. So anyway, in any case, she's pregnant by Poseidon, and the two beings that emerge from her body are Pegasus, the winged horse. Poseidon is a god of horses, and Medusa had wings, so Pegasus, the winged horse, comes out of her, which allows Perseus to fly into the heavens, to fly into the higher consciousness, into the divine mind. And then the other being that emerges is named Chrysaor. Chrysaor is a human giant with a golden sword. So Chrysaor is a warrior but a protector. So it's basically like through Medusa's death, she's transformed into a different type of a protector. So whereas Medusa was like kind of a junkyard dog protecting, standing between, our conscious selves and then our unconscious, she goes from being kind of a hostile junkyard dog to being this very, beautiful, cooperative, giant warrior, who's very civil and, can be reasoned with. And basically to lose the junkyard dog protector and then get this giant warrior with the golden sword, and gold is the color of the sun, color of the soul. This is about the soul basically achieving leadership and mastery over the unconscious and the unconscious emotions. So, basically since Perseus had the courage to go into the unconscious, to go into the underworld and to slay the junkyard dog protector, that protector gets transformed into like a civil and a very approachable and reasonable one. And this is also, you can also look at this as like, this transforms the quality of the unconscious mind as a whole, because with the soul having mastery of the unconscious is a very cooperative protector rather than like an erratic, kind of a chaotic protector that we have no control or say over. So Perseus basically sort of transforms his own unconscious by getting mastery over it. So the protector of the unconscious is now this warrior with the golden sword, gold for the color of the soul. And then with Pegasus, Perseus soars into the heavens, returns to Seriphus, and then presents the head of Medusa to Polydectes, who's this sociopathic, narcissistic king who's holding Perseus' mother hostage, under house arrest so he can marry her. So Polydectes, looking into the lifeless eyes of Medusa, he gets a look into his own unconscious, and it paralyzes him, it hypnotizes him, hypnotizes him with fear, dread, and alarm, Medusa's sisters, and turns him to stone. So he gets a look at himself that he is not prepared to take. So, and this is where we are in the world. We're going to get a deeper look into what goes on into the world, and really a deeper look into ourselves even. And people who are not prepared for this are going to be paralyzed, and they're going to lose their heads, and they're going to go crazy. So be prepared for this. Be prepared to face your own feelings. I slept like shit last night. I woke up at 5 a.m. in a panic. Don't even know what I was dreaming about or what memory I was having. So the energy is building already. We're 2 days away from it. So it's no bullshit. That's for sure. So Perseus, so the head of Medusa, Perseus holds up the head of Medusa, turns the sociopathic king to stone, and Perseus's mother is free to free to travel, free to go. In this, a lot of mythologies have this this woman or this queen or this goddess who's basically being held captive. This can even be like the the anima, like the feminine, spirit, basically being, kind of hijacked by, kind of narcissistic, sociopathic, emotional forces, but that's a whole other subject. Basically, well, actually, one last part of mythology too is that, so after the job's done, Perseus' mother's freed. He gives this symbol to, he gives this head, this severed head of Medusa, to Athena. And as I mentioned, Athena took the venom and some of the blood of Medusa, which are both poisonous, gave them to Asclepius, the son of Apollo, the physician of the gods, and he made a universal cure-all, a panacea. He made medicines and he made deadly poisons out of it. So we're going to be dealing with poisons of all types, which we've already been dealing with in this world. But an interesting thing too is that Medusa, Athena puts Medusa's head on her shield, which is called the Aegis, and it basically turns all corrupt, unclean, unholy enemies into stone. It paralyzes them. This is why the U.S. Navy has the Aegis radar system on a lot of ships. It's drawing upon this myth. And then even in the Norse and Germanic mythology, and my teacher pointed this out to me, you have the Aegis Yalmer. So the Aegis Yalmer is the helm of awe, and the helm of awe was said to, it was a magical, it was either a magical shield or a magical helmet, which was taken from a hero named Sigurd, from his brother Fafnir, who had turned into a dragon, and he went and slayed this dragon and took this, this magical shield or this magical helmet that had this symbol on it. But this Aegis Yalmer was said to destroy corruption and impurity and unholiness and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, this head of Medusa does that as well. But yeah, the big takeaway is nobody likes to deal with their feelings. I always say, men deny their feelings, women talk circles around them, but nobody wants to deal with them. And this full moon, and then, well, actually full moon and lunar eclipse, and then 2 weeks later, solar eclipse is going to make us deal with this stuff, because especially with the solar eclipse, this is, it's in Scorpio. Scorpio is your deep unconscious feelings, the really unpleasant ones that you'd rather not deal with. So, yeah, what else? I think that's pretty much it. I'm going to wrap this up, but expect some serious shit to happen. From the end of this week through the next 3.5 months, a lot of things are going to come out into the public eye. People are going to lose their heads. They're going to go crazy. They're going to get very angry. But freedom is going to be on the rise. So this is very encouraging. So, don't lose heart if things get crazy and, they look scary. And if you have not had a Vedic astrology reading with me, I highly recommend that you get one. This is a great kind of a roadmap through your life, and especially through crazy times like this. And I always tell people I don't do astrology to entertain. I do astrology to empower. So what we go over, we look at, what your soul desires that caused you to be born in this incarnation are. We look at your deep desires, your life path, what you really want out of life. What those themes are. Not specifically, but what the themes are to help you to focus yourself. And as I mentioned before, I give you a custom meditation. So I give you a mantra to chant, I give you a yantra, a mandala to gaze at. And these are basically reprogramming languages, system updates for your mind. I do rune readings as well. I give custom meditations for that too. Rune readings are basically like a mind map that shows you where your mind's open, where it's blocked, and how to rebalance it. And I have a couple instructional videos for sale for download, Qigong videos. And Qigong is an amazing mind-body practice that's changed my life. It optimizes mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health. So thanks for tuning in. This was a long one, and I'll be seeing you later. Have a good one.